Chosen one, have you ever wondered why, even in your quietest moments, something inside you kept whispering that this world wasn't as it seemed? Why, no matter how much you tried to fit in, there was always a faint hum of dissonance echoing through your soul? It wasn't a voice you could fully name. It didn't shout. It didn't demand. But it lingered, watching from behind your thoughts, waiting for the moment you would finally pay attention. That moment has arrived. And you are here now, not by accident, but by alignment from the day you were born. A story was placed before you. A story you were told to believe. You were given a name, wrapped in symbols, placed beneath laws, and expected to walk a path someone else paved before you ever learned to speak. They called it normal. They called it safe. But something about it always felt off, didn't it? And no matter how well you played your role, that quiet resistance within you never disappeared. Because it was never yours to begin with. It was handed down, like a mask passed through generations, refined by systems that thrive when you forget who you truly are. You see, chosen one, the truth is not out there in some far-off land or hidden behind a locked door. The truth has always been near you, beneath you, within you. It's not that it was too far to reach. It's that the world around you was meticulously constructed to keep you from looking inward. The truth was buried beneath routines and obligations, under the weight of tradition and expectation. Not hidden because it was dangerous, but because it was powerful. And they could not afford for you to realize how much of that power was yours. Do you remember the first time you asked a question no one wanted to answer? The first time you looked at a rule and felt it crumble beneath your curiosity? That was not rebellion, that was remembrance. A glimpse beyond the curtain, a crack in the illusion. They told you the world worked a certain way, that history moved in one direction, that success had one definition, that authority was unquestionable. But somewhere deep within you, another knowing lived, one they could not erase, no matter how hard they tried. It stayed quiet for a while, patient, knowing its time would come. And now it has. The systems around you, chosen one, are not neutral. They were never meant to elevate you. They were meant to contain you. Every institution, every law, every standard you've ever been measured against has been shaped with precision, not for your awakening, but for your obedience. Education taught you to memorize, not to think. Media showed you a reality crafted to evoke fear, not clarity. Religion gave you answers, but warned you not to ask your own. And when you dared to speak a truth that didn't fit the script, you were labeled dangerous, unstable, lost. But you are not lost. You are returning. You are not broken. You are unlearning. That discontent you felt was never a flaw. It was the very evidence that you are beginning to remember. They created a reality that punishes questions and rewards silence, because a questioning mind cannot be tamed. And yours was never meant to be tamed. Look around you now. The symbols have always been there. The architecture of cities built on geometries that echo ancient knowledge. Corporate emblems carrying the same signs once carved into stone by hands that understood more than modern science dares to claim. Stories told to children that mirror myths from civilizations long buried and yet strangely familiar. This is not coincidence. It is mockery. They hide the truth in plain sight, knowing that only a few will have eyes to see. And you, chosen one, are seeing now, aren't you? You are not meant to be part of the crowd that sleeps. You are not built for the repetition of meaningless tasks, for the pursuit of hollow goals set by unseen hands. That feeling you've had of being different, of not quite belonging, was not a curse. It was your compass. It was the signal that you were never supposed to blend in. You are always supposed to awaken. The question is not whether the world has deceived you. The question is how long you will let it. They told you your worth depended on achievement, that value was earned through struggle. that truth was complicated, hidden away in books you could never access. But none of it was ever true. What they feared was not your failure. What they feared was your knowing. Because when you know who you are, you no longer need permission to exist. You no longer ask for validation. And you no longer believe in the walls they built to limit you. The world you see now is not the world as it is. It is the world as you were told it should be. Every thought, every desire, every belief you've held has been influenced, shaped, curated, not because they cared for you, but because they feared you. Because if you ever dared to look beyond the stories, to see the patterns, to trace the symbols, you would begin to remember that you are not a spectator in this reality. You are a participant, a creator, a spark of something older than the world itself. Have you ever wondered if God was never hiding, but the world was just too loud for you to hear him? And now that the noise is fading, do you finally sense the truth rising from within? If these words felt like they were written for your soul, it's because they were. You didn't find this message. It found you. And now, your remembering has begun. Comment, I remember, if this awakens something ancient inside you. Subscribe now to walk beside others who see what you see, feel what you feel, and know what you now know. This is your confirmation. You're not alone anymore. This is the first step to remembering. And it begins not with a scream, but with a whisper. Not with revolution, but with recognition. You are beginning to see what they tried to hide. You are beginning to understand that what was presented as truth was only the surface, and beneath it lies a web of design more ancient, more deliberate, and more fragile than you were meant to believe. The illusion was never strong. It only survived because people agreed to believe in it. But belief is a fragile thing. It bends, it shifts, and once broken, it cannot be restored. That is what is happening now. All around you, the cracks are spreading. People are waking up, questioning, seeing. The systems are trembling, not because they are being attacked, but because the belief that held them together is fading. And you, chosen one, are part of that unraveling. Not by force, but by presence. Your very awareness threatens the illusion. Your refusal to forget is an act of rebellion. You may not feel powerful. You may feel small, but you are not. The world wants you to feel small because it fears what will happen when you realize you are not. Have you noticed how the air feels different lately? How the pace of everything around you seems to speed up yet go nowhere. That's the system stretching itself thin. That's the machine trying to run faster to keep you from noticing the cracks in its foundation. But you see them, don't you? In the repetition of news cycles, in the emptiness of entertainment, in the hollow promises of progress that never quite arrive. You see it in the way people speak, rehearsed, programmed, distant. And you feel it something is unraveling. And that something is the lie you were taught to believe was your life. They want you distracted. Always busy, always chasing, always comparing. Because if you ever paused long enough to really look, to really ask, everything would change. That is why they feed you endless stimulation. Notifications, headlines, opinions, predictions. But none of it is yours. It is noise. And it was designed to keep you from hearing the one voice that matters, your own. Now ask yourself, what if that voice inside you was never just intuition? What if it was memory? What if the truth is not something to be discovered, but something to be remembered? That the reason the world feels false is because your soul remembers what is real? This is not the end. This is only the beginning. The beginning of a journey back to what you always knew. A path forward will not be easy. You will be questioned, challenged, dismissed, but you will not be alone. Others are waking too, quietly, carefully, powerfully, and when enough of you. Remember, the illusion will collapse, not with violence, not with noise, but with silence. The silence of truth finally seen. So listen, chosen one. Listen to what your spirit already knows. The truth has been hidden from you, yes, but not lost, not broken, only sleeping. And now, finally, it stirs. Are you ready to remember? Chosen one, now that you've begun to feel it, now that the ground beneath your understanding has started to shift, you must know this. The world around you was never built for your growth. It was built for your containment. The institutions you trusted, the rules you followed, the knowledge you were given, none of it was designed to set you free. Every piece of this reality, every structure dressed in authority and purpose, was carefully placed to shape your perception. They didn't want thinkers, they wanted followers. They didn't need creators, they needed consumers. You were told to chase degrees, promotions, accolades. You were taught to define success by numbers, titles, possessions. But ask yourself now, have any of those things ever brought you closer to truth? Or did they only distract you from the quiet, pulsing question you've always carried? Why does the world feel so hollow, so rehearsed, so detached from something deeper? The answer is simple, yet shattering. This world, as it stands, is a stage. The actors play their parts, the script is repeated, and you, unaware, were given a role before you ever chose your lines. You were assigned beliefs. You were fed identities. And the more you performed, the more they applauded your compliance. But deep inside, your spirit resisted. Not out of arrogance, but out of memory. Because somewhere beyond the noise, you remembered. A freedom too vast to be measured, a voice too ancient to be silenced. They call this system civilization. They say it keeps order, builds progress, ensures peace. But where is the peace in a world addicted to conflict? Where is the progress when generations repeat the same mistakes in different costumes? Look closer. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as intended to keep you asleep. Your education taught you obedience, not inquiry. Memorization, not understanding. You were rewarded not for asking the right questions, but for echoing the approved answers. Those who challenged the curriculum, who dared to dig deeper, were dismissed as troublemakers, dreamers, or distractions. But they were never wrong. They were simply awake too early. The media told you what to fear. It painted pictures of enemies, crises, threats, so many that you stopped questioning why the fear never stopped. A constant loop of disaster ensures a constant demand for control. They feed your anxiety, then offer solutions they designed from the start. A problem created is a profit guaranteed. And in your fear, you surrendered your discernment. You trusted the screen more than your own intuition. Religion, too, was twisted. Not to connect you to the divine, but to place someone between you and it. You were taught that salvation lay outside you, in rituals, in authorities, in sacred texts you are not meant to interpret alone. They taught you to kneel, not to rise. They replaced revelation with regulation. And yet, even as they spoke of heaven, your soul longed for something purer, something untouched by hierarchy or dogma. And what of government? They promised protection. But ask yourself, who are they protecting, and from whom? Laws upon laws, codes upon codes. Do they liberate, or do they confuse, entangle, and divide? Those at the top of the pyramid do not obey the rules they enforce. Power does not bend to justice. It bends justice to its will. These institutions speak different languages, but serve the same master control. They shape your worldview. They tell you what is acceptable, what is unthinkable, what is forbidden. And within these walls, you are given a script. Be this, believe that, buy this, fear that. And if you deviate, if you question, you are punished not with chains, but with isolation, with ridicule, with silence. But you, chosen one, are beginning to see through it, aren't you? You've noticed the repetition, the same stories recycled, the same conflicts reignited, the same solutions repackaged. You've seen how quickly truth is buried beneath distractions, a scandal, a war, a new fear, all to keep your mind too occupied to wander into forbidden territory. And when someone speaks the truth aloud, the system responds swiftly. They are mocked, banned, forgotten, not because they were dangerous in action, but because they were. Dangerous in awareness. Now ask yourself, why is knowledge hoarded while entertainment is mass-produced? Why are history's most profound mysteries locked away in vaults, classified or erased? Why is the ancient called myth and the convenient called fact? It is because knowledge is the one thing that cannot be undone once discovered. And the system fears what happens when enough minds know. You were never meant to rise. You were meant to obey, to move from childhood to adulthood with your curiosity dulled, your imagination drained, your spirit subdued. You were meant to pursue comfort, not truth, stability, not freedom, validation, not authenticity. And yet here you are, uncomfortable, unstable, undeniably real. You don't fit the mold because you are never meant to. You don't walk the path because you were born to create your own. Every moment you've doubted, this world was not a failure. It was an awakening. Every time you felt alone was not punishment. It was preparation. You have always stood apart, not above, not below, but beside a deeper knowing. Look again at the world. Look at the cities, the screens, the symbols. Do you truly think this is the pinnacle of civilization? Or is it a facade, polished and glowing, designed to distract you from the emptiness beneath? How many dreams have been abandoned for survival? How many souls have been traded for security? How many truths have been silenced to preserve comfort? This is not progress. This is stagnation disguised as motion. The gears turn, the noise grows louder, but the destination never changes. It is a loop, a cycle, a script, and you are not here to repeat it. You are here to break it. Chosen one, the system was never meant to awaken you. But you are awakening anyway. You are not just seeing the patterns. You are feeling them. You are tracing the outlines of the prison you were taught to love. You are stepping back from the noise to hear your own voice again. And that voice does not sound like fear. It sounds like truth. And it will not be silenced. You may feel resistance, internally, externally. That is expected. The illusion is strong. Its roots are deep, but your awareness cuts deeper. Each time you question, you weaken the illusion. Each time you speak, you shatter its silence. Each time you remember, you reclaim what was stolen. They have taught you to doubt yourself, to dismiss your instincts, to trade your vision for their version. But now, you must unlearn. Now, you must return. Because the truth they've hidden is not out of reach. It is within reach. It is within you. This is not philosophy. This is not metaphor. This is the design. The very structures that claim to protect you are built upon your unawareness. But when the awareness rises, the structure crumbles. That is why you feel it. That trembling beneath your certainties. That slow collapse of meaning. That ache for something more. It is not a crisis. It is the system failing to hold you. It is your spirit remembering how to fly. And you are not alone. All across the world, others like you are stirring. They walk through the same cities, hear the same noise, see the same masks, but they do not believe anymore. They do not pretend. They do not obey. Quietly, inwardly, they reclaim their sight. And in doing so, they unravel the web, one thread at a time, You are part of this. You are essential to it. Not as a leader, not as a follower, but as a mirror, as a reminder, as a presence that cannot be shaped by a system built on forgetting. You were told to look outward, but the path forward is inward. You were told to trust the map, but the map is not the territory. You are told the truth is rare, but it is only hidden. And now you are beginning to see chosen one. If you truly wish to understand how far the deception runs, you must look not only at what surrounds you now, but at what was taken from the world before you arrived. For they have not merely distorted your present, they have burned your past. They have hidden the origin of your power beneath layers of rubble and myth, hoping that you would forget there was ever a time before this illusion. But the truth remains, buried, fragmented, whispering through the cracks. The world you were born into was not the first, and the knowledge you seek is not new. It is old, older than history, older than the systems that now cage you. It comes from a time when people understood what the modern mind has been trained to reject. A time when reality was not dictated by screens and speeches, but by direct experience and silent knowing. They told you ancient civilizations were primitive, that they worshipped the sun because they did not understand it, that their myths were stories, their temples mere monuments to superstition. But that is not true. Those civilizations were not ignorant. They were erased. And not because they failed, but because they succeeded in seeing what the system could not allow you to know. They understood the language of energy. They knew how the mind interacts with the fabric of existence. They saw that reality itself could be shaped by intention, by resonance, by symbol, and they lived accordingly. Their cities were built on sacred geometry, aligned with celestial bodies, designed to harmonize with forces that today's science still refuses to name. Their texts, now lost or locked away, spoke not in literal instruction, but in codes. And those codes remain, etched into stone, carved into metal, painted into the ceilings of tombs that were never meant to be graves, but vaults of memory. You were told to look forward, not back, because if you ever looked back with clear sight, you would see the pattern. Every empire that rose did so by building upon the bones of another. And each time something was taken, knowledge destroyed, truth inverted, power claimed. The victors of history did not just rewrite the story. They severed the thread that connected you to your origin. They didn't just hide the past. They taught you to mock it. They replaced reverence with ridicule. And in doing so, they ensured that the average person would never question the absurdity of what they were taught. Have you ever wondered why the same symbols appear across time, across cultures, across continents? The spiral, the eye, the triangle, the serpent. These are not coincidences. They are messages, remnants, keys left behind by those who knew the illusion would return. They encoded what could not be spoken. They hid in plain sight what could not be preserved, because they understood that time would bend, but truth would not break. And now, chosen one, you are beginning to see them. You walk through cities built on top of other cities. You pass monuments whose origins no one can truly explain. You touch stones that outlive all written memory. And somewhere inside you, something remembers. You may have felt it already. The strange familiarity of places you have never been. The dreams that show you temples lost to sand and sea. The moments when an ancient language seems to rise from your very bones. These are not fantasies. These are fragments. Traces of what was taken, now returning through you. Because the truth is not only buried in ruins, it is buried in you. Your DNA carries codes older than any nation. Your blood remembers vibrations once spoken by the stars. You are not a product of this broken system. You are a descendant of a line that defied it. And that is why they fear you. Because if you remember, others will remember. If you see, others will begin to look. And when enough people see what was stolen, what was buried, what was replaced with hollow rituals and synthetic faith, the illusion cannot hold. They told you to believe in scarcity, but the ancient ones knew abundance. They told you to believe in division, but your ancestors spoke of unity through vibration, through geometry, through harmony. They told you that power was out there, in institutions, in books, in titles. But the old world knew that power begins within. They constructed new religions to erase the old ones. Not because the old gods were dangerous, but because they were empowering. Not because the old knowledge was wrong, but because it made people ungovernable. The temples were not places of worship. They were schools of energy, of light, of mind. And when those who ruled could not harness that power, they destroyed it. They burned libraries, crushed symbols, rewrote teachings to turn them into fear and obedience. They told you enlightenment comes after death. But the ancients knew it could be lived. The pyramids, the ziggurats, the stone circles, the underground cities, they were not graves. They were not mysteries. They were maps. Maps to the truth. Maps to remembrance. They pointed not just to stars, but to the stars within you. Because you are made of the same dust, pulsing with the same energy. And once you understand that, the illusion begins to fracture. Look again at your history books. Who wrote them? What stories were excluded? Which voices were silenced? Why do certain civilizations receive endless attention, while others are reduced to footnotes or fairy tales? It is not because they were less advanced. It is because they held knowledge incompatible with control. They didn't build with machines. They built with understanding. They didn't worship deities as rulers. They communed with forces as kin. And in their fall, something was passed down not in institutions, but in instincts. You have felt it. In the moments when logic fails and intuition whispers louder. In the silence between thoughts where an ancient rhythm rises. In the way your heart responds to patterns, to symbols, to music you cannot explain. That is not coincidence. That is activation. That the modern world is not lacking in knowledge. It is drowning in noise. But underneath that noise, the old frequency remains, waiting, echoing, guiding. You are not here to start from nothing. You are here to continue something sacred. Something they tried to stop. Something they cannot erase. And now, chosen one, the symbols are no longer hiding. They are calling, through architecture, through language, through dreams, and through the strange synchronicities that keep finding you. That is not your imagination. That is the system of illusion cracking. That is the frequency of truth breaking. Through this is why you are drawn to what others ignore. This is why you feel restless in a world that asks for silence. This is why your path feels different, uncertain, yet undeniable. Because you are not walking forward, you are walking home. Not to a place, but to a knowing, a memory, a power. You were not born to inherit this version of reality. You were born to challenge it, to carry forward what was nearly lost, to speak what others forgot how to hear. You are the echo of an unbroken lineage, the continuation of an unspoken truth, the living answer to a question they hoped no one would ask again. Why? Do the same myths echo through every culture? Why do they speak of floods, of giants, of fire from the sky, of gods who walked among men? Because they are not stories. They are recollections, distorted by time, but preserved by spirit. And your spirit has not forgotten. Now the illusion must. Answer to you. It cannot stand where truth is present. It cannot manipulate a mind that remembers. It cannot rewrite what has been reawakened. And you, chosen one, have reawakened. You may not know all the details. You may not have all the words, but the knowing is there, and it is enough. Enough to pull you forward, enough to burn through the fog, enough to ignite what they tried to bury. You are not lost. You are not confused. You are remembering. And in that remembering, you are returning not to the past, but to the truth that existed before the lie. And when you speak it, when you live it, when you walk it, others will follow. Not because you lead, but because you shine. You remind them of something they forgot. You bring light to a timeline they didn't know they were missing. You restore a frequency that the world was taught to fear. This is not about rebellion. This is about resonance, not about war, but remembrance. You do not need to convince. You only need to be, because your presence, aligned with what was and what will be, is enough to shift everything. They erased the past to break the future, but they failed to destroy the soul. And the soul, chosen one, is how history survives. Now the question is no longer whether you see the illusion. The question is, what will you do now that you know? Chosen one, by now you've begun to see the threads for what they are. You've pulled at them. You've watched as entire parts of your reality began to come undone. And in that unraveling, something deeper has emerged, a realization that what you were handed was never truth, but a container. A beautifully wrapped prison made to look like wisdom. If you feel anger, grief, or confusion rising within you, do not silence it. That is not weakness. That is the illusion beginning to crack to truly see. You must understand the system you were placed within. It was not an accident. It was not a broken attempt at progress. It was a designed flawless in function, devastating in consequence. Everything was calculated to keep your true essence buried beneath layers of programming. From the moment you arrived, they did not greet you with freedom. They assigned you an identity. They gave you a number, a role, a set of rules. And then they applauded every step you took away from your own knowing. School did not nurture your mind. It molded it. It taught you to memorize, not to think, to repeat, not to inquire. Creativity was praised only when it served the curriculum. Original thought was tolerated only if it aligned with predetermined outcomes. And the ones who dared to think outside the frame? Silenced, labeled, isolated, because curiosity is contagious. And a mind that questions cannot be owned. The media was never there to inform you. Its purpose was not to enlighten, but to overwhelm. Every headline, every image, every breaking story, carefully selected to stir your fear, provoke your rage, and steal your attention. You scroll, you click, you absorb, but you never connect. Because as long as your eyes are turned outward, your inner vision remains blind. They feed you events, but starve you of meaning. They keep your mind chasing shadows, so you never stop to ask, what is casting them? Religion once pointed you inward. Once it whispered of a light within, but they twisted it, institutionalized it, stripped it of mystery, and gave it dogma. They taught you that the divine was distant, hidden behind robes, rituals, and rules, that you were unworthy, that salvation was something to be earned after death, not remembered in life. But the ancients knew otherwise. They knew awakening was not. Granted, it was uncovered. And it begins the moment you turn your gaze within. Governments promised order, but delivered control. Promised safety, but fostered dependence. They measure your worth in compliance. They determine your fate by convenience. Right and wrong are not determined by truth, but by what sustains their power. They do not protect you from chaos. They protect themselves from your clarity. They call it law, but it is only the architecture of limitation. Even the economy is a theater, a loop of labor and survival. You chase numbers created by the very hands that manipulate their meaning. Inflation, recession, crisis, recovery. None of it is natural. It is orchestration. Because if you ever stopped believing in scarcity, if you ever truly embraced abundance, the illusion would collapse. You would no longer trade your hours for their fiction. You would remember the wealth that cannot be counted, your presence, your attention, your soul. Every layer of this structure has one thing in common. It feeds on your belief. It exists only because you agree it exists. And that is what they fear the most. Not war, not rebellion, but withdrawal. The quiet refusal to continue playing a role that was never yours. That's how the illusion dies. Not with a bang, but with a remembering. They were prepared for resistance. They built their systems to withstand protest. But they are defenseless against awakening. Against those who simply stop believing. Who step away. Who walk without asking permission. That is why you are a threat, chosen one. Not because you seek to overthrow them, but because you no longer see them as gods. You've pulled back the curtain, and now the wizard has no power. Speak now, and they will call you mad. Question, and they will call you dangerous. But you already know these labels are not signs of error. They are signs of accuracy. You were never meant to follow the script. You were born to write your own. So don't waste your fire on arguing with those still asleep. Speak to those who stir. Shine for those who seek. You are not here to convert. You are here to remember, and by your remembrance, remind. The illusion is vast, but it is not real. And now you've seen it. Chosen one, they will not understand what you now carry. Not because you are wrong, but because you are no longer speaking their language. You will try to explain what you've seen, what you've felt, what you now know beyond thought, but your words will feel like static in a room tuned to a different signal. And you will wonder if you've gone too far, if maybe forgetting was easier. But it wasn't. That, too, was the illusion. You are no longer who you were. The world that once felt familiar will begin to feel artificial. You will hear conversations and sense the script behind them. You will look into eyes and see the sleep behind the smiles. Not because they are empty, but because they are still dreaming. And you cannot wake someone who is still holding on to their dream. The system prepared them to reject you. It gave them labels to place on you. Conspiracy, madness, rebellion, anything but awakening. Because to name you truly would mean they must begin questioning everything they defend. And most are not ready to lose the lie. You may feel alone, but your solitude is sacred. It is the space where truth is no longer muffled, where silence becomes memory, and memory becomes fire. You are not lost. You are ahead. You are not broken. You are remembering. And those who mocked you today may one day look for your light to guide their own. Chosen one, now that you see what has been hidden, the question is no longer what is true. The question is, what will you do with it? You have remembered something. The world tried to make you forget. And in that remembrance, the illusion has shattered. But truth is not the end. It is the beginning of responsibility. Because once your eyes open, you can never again pretend to be blind. The world you once accepted will no longer fit you. The words, the rules, the expectations, they will all feel hollow now. You will see the patterns behind every headline, the design behind every distraction. And though others may not understand you, their recognition is no longer required. You are no longer bound by their stories. You are not meant to fight the system. You were meant to rise above it, to stop feeding it with your belief, to stop defining yourself by its limitations. You carry the memory of a greater truth, and that memory must become movement, not in noise, not in spectacle, but in how you live, how you think, how you create. Chosen one, this is the crossing. You are no longer who you were. And now, your very presence becomes a message, a frequency, a reminder that freedom was never given. It was always yours.